Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be trying to determine the best possible console Fortnite in-game settings. Maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago, I did a video kinda similar to this, where I looked at the sensitivity values of 10 top linear console players, and then I kinda talked about what values seem to be the most ideal based on what I saw from the pros. However, even though sensitivity values definitely get the most attention, there are a lot of important settings beyond that. The ones that we're going to cover in this video are Colorblind Mode, Foot Controller, Edit on Release, Brightness, Vibration, Visualized Audio, and 3D Headphones. I'm going to be looking at the settings of the same 10 top console competitive players as in the last video, tallying up what each player uses for each setting, and then we'll go one by one talking about the results. It may sound a bit confusing, but trust me, you'll understand it once we start, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first setting that we're going to be looking at in this video is Colorblind Mode. I like to revisit this topic every few months in random videos because it seems like Fortnite changes certain graphic settings each new season, so a Colorblind Mode that may have been great in Season 2 now could be terrible in Season 3. And I think it's really important to look at console players specifically here because obviously the graphics are a little bit different than they are on PC. So out of the 10 top console players I looked at, here are the final results. 4 players used no Colorblind Mode at all, and then here are what the other 6 players went with in terms of colorblind. 2 players used Deuteranope with 10 strength, and the other 4 players also all used Deuteranope with 9, 8, 6, and 1 strength. So other than the slight 1 strength outlier there, when it comes to colorblind right now, it seems like there are really only 2 good options. You either want to use no Colorblind Mode whatsoever, or you want to use Deuteranope with anywhere from about 6 to 10 strength. And that's a bit of a change because I know a couple of months ago, a lot of top console players were using either Tritanope or Protanope, but it looks like Deuteranope is the pretty surefire best bet now. The next setting that we're going to be looking at is Foot Controller, and this is definitely the one where the results surprised me the most. If you don't know what Foot Controller is, it's a setting that's still only available on PS4 and controller on PC for some reason, and it was always thought that using it would give you less aim acceleration while aiming. I personally used it when Legacy was still in the game, but as soon as I switched to linear, I turned it off because I basically thought, what's the point? If you use zero look dampening time, which pretty much all the top players do, you already have aim acceleration, so I basically just assumed that having Foot Controller on would do nothing. But out of the 10 top console pros, 5 of them had Foot Controller on, 2 of them had it off, and then unfortunately the final 3 played on Xbox, so it isn't even an option for them. But 5 out of 7 ons is enough of a sample size in my opinion to really make me reconsider things. And as I was watching one of the top console players from this list stream a few days ago, someone actually specifically asked him why he had Foot Controller on, and he responded by saying it was because it made his aim feel a bit smoother. So after seeing that, I think I'm going to turn Foot Controller back on and see if I notice any kind of significant difference. And just as a quick side note, all 5 of the players who had the Foot Controller setting on used 1% for Foot Controller Dead Zone and Foot Controller Max Throttle. So again, it really sucks that if you play on Xbox, you can't use Foot Controller even if you wanted to. So you guys have my condolences because it makes no sense to have it on one of the consoles and not on both of them. Moving on to the next somewhat controversial setting, we have Confirm Edit on Release, and much like with Foot Controller, the results on this one surprised me a bit too. I'm someone that's used Confirm Edit on Release pretty much since it was added into the game, and I always thought it would be even better on console because it really simplifies the editing process as a whole, and you'd think that would be extra beneficial on lower FPS. However, when I looked at the 10 top players, the results didn't really indicate that. In total, 3 players used Confirm Edit on Release, and therefore the other 7 players had it set to off. And honestly, now that I think about it, that probably isn't as much of a gap as you may have been expecting based on what I said. 3070 really isn't that far from 5050, so if you use confirm edit on release, I doubt that data would single-handedly make you switch away from it. Also, another thing I gotta point out that I always try to is that these are the best of the best players on console with likely the best of the best mechanics, so they don't really need the editing process to be simplified, if that makes any sense. If you're more of an average speed editor though, having to click one less button while editing, which is what confirm edit on release does, may be a lot more helpful. The next setting I want to go over is brightness. This is actually something that I get asked about and I see other players get asked about fairly frequently for some reason. I guess maybe people struggle to see things sometimes and they think brightness is the problem. I don't really know, but hopefully this helps. So out of the 10 players, here are the brightnesses in order of lowest to highest. 90, 100, 100, 100, 105, 107, 110, 115, 130, and then one maniac who I guess doesn't value his retinas very much is all the way up at the max of 150. So a fairly wide array of values there, and just to sort of simplify it a bit, the average brightness among these players is just under 111 and the median brightness is 108.5. So as a whole, this really didn't surprise me all that much. I think I used something like 105 brightness last time I checked, which seems to be right in line with most of these players. However, you also want to keep in mind that this is definitely at least somewhat affected by the TV/monitor you play on. I'm sure all the name brand TVs and monitors have relatively similar base picture settings, so it probably isn't going to be a huge deal for most people, but if 110 still seems a little bit dark on your monitor, don't be scared to bump it up to 120 or 125, even though that's a little bit out of the norm. Another graphic-based setting that I want to quickly look at is HUD Scale. This one typically doesn't get a lot of attention, so in case you don't know what it does, it basically determines how much space things like your minimap, inventory, and health bar take up on your screen. You obviously don't want those things to be too small to where you can't really see them, but the more common problem is that people have their HUD Scale values too high to where those things I mentioned actually block you from seeing players at a certain angle. So here are the HUD Scale values of the 10 players, again in order from lowest to highest: 66, 67, 70, 75, 75, 76, 77, 80, 82, 90. So that comes out to an average HUD Scale of 75.6 and a median HUD Scale of 75.5. So based on that, it actually seems relatively simple. You almost never want to have a HUD Scale over 90, and it seems like values in the 70 to 80 range are probably your best bet. Again, this will probably vary slightly depending on the TV/monitor you play on, but I can't imagine it would change too much. The final thing I want to cover in this video is a 2-for-1 of audio-based settings, and those are visualized audio and 3D headphones. These are again settings that may not get a ton of attention, but I was interested to see if the top level players actually use them. So starting with visualized audio, and in case you don't know, this is the setting that makes a little white circle appear on your screen that sort of points towards the direction of where sound is coming from. And out of the 10 players, 3 of them had it turned on, while the other 7 had it turned off. So definitely a significant majority towards having it off, but just like we saw with edit on release, 3 out of 10 isn't horrible by any means either. I mentioned in a previous video that even though some people do really like using visualized audio, apparently it can cause you to get lower average FPS. Not sure how true that is, but it could possibly be a factor for people not using it. And the final setting in this video is 3D headphones, which basically just changes the way in-game audio sounds. It's a bit weird, and when I tried it I didn't really like it, but I was still curious to see what other people thought. However, the results on this one were actually pretty conclusive, with 9 players not using it and only 1 player having it on. So definitely the biggest consensus that we've seen with any setting in this video, and even though 3D headphones is interesting, it seems seems like most people don't really think it's worth using. So I hope you guys found this helpful and enjoyed the video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down the comment section below. Let me know if you were surprised by the results of any of the settings that we went over, and are you possibly considering changing something now? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.